good people of the internet. Oh man, how are we doing today? We got lots of people in the chat here. Let's go ahead and turn this music down. Let's see what's up. We got Tech Junkies. Man, that guy's there first. Almost every single time. What's up, Tech Junkies? Everyday Technology, Dustin, Trail Features, NGM Tools, Crex TV, Danny, Robert, M-Tech, Kiko, and a bunch of other people. We got people from Australia, Malaysia, Canada. I thought I saw a bunch of other stuff. Argentina, the Netherlands. You guys are everywhere. How are we doing this Wednesday evening? So happy that guide is done, so we can move on to other stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and this guide that I just finished, for those who don't know, the GH5 guide, it's been a project that I've been working on for quite some time. It looks like my lips are out of sync. Reverb. How's that? Anything different? Echo. We got an echo. There's a reverb. Okay. Let's try that. How's that? Is that better? Boom, boom, boom. Echo, echo, echo. Do we hear an echo? Echo. All right. I'm going to assume that's fixed. You guys can let me know. Yeah. So finished the GH5 guide, and it was an animal. Whoops. Chrome isn't plugged in here. That's unique. Let's try just Chrome. Derp. Up, all the derps going on today. Anyway, finished the GH5 guide, academy.dslr, videoshooter.com. And that guide really pushed me to learn some new stuff, which I'm excited about. And I didn't plan a topic for today, but I thought we could do some questions. But also, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about where everything's going in the future. I should have actually done a title for this one, but last minute, today was crazy. So the GH5 right now, I think, is one of the best cameras to kind of future-proof yourself, and kind of the best cameras to look at what's coming up in the future. I shaved my head too, Dustin says. Nice. So yeah, the GH5, we've got 10-bit, we've got high data rates, and really good resolution options, and it is a very capable HDR camera with log, HLG, all this kind of good stuff. I think more and more we're going to see everybody else catch up to that, to the point where all cameras can do 10-bit, really high data rates. So that's going to be the thing of the future. And HDR, folks, as scary as it may sound to some, is going to be everything. Just like eventually no one's going to have 1080p monitors, TVs, everything's going to be 4K. And then whatever is next, 8K. HDR is here to stay. So if you haven't already, I would highly suggest you guys start researching that, diving into what it is, how that affects us as creators, and YouTube's already supporting it, so it's going to be something that's going to be here before we know it. A great source to learn some of that stuff would be Technicolor. So if you just search what is HDR on YouTube, there's a couple great seminars by Technicolor, and they break everything down. And essentially it comes down to brightness, brightness and color. So there's way more brightness with HDR and a lot more color. I'm going to try to get my Chrome going on here. Let's go into this thing. All right, G7 Plus Chrome. That's this one. Chrome. Let's try that. Nope. New tab. There we go. Okay. You guys can see that? All right. We will go places here. So, 709. Yeah, so Vaping Biker just said, any thoughts on HDR ready for Final Cut 10.4? We should see a lot more, and that's the tricky part right now with HDR, is we've got the cameras that can shoot it. Our cameras have been capable of doing HDR for a long time. Just now we're getting the displays that can actually show us the HDR, but right in the middle of getting stuff from our cameras to those TVs and to YouTube is kind of funky. It's really only a handful of options. One of the best ones is DaVinci Resolve. So we're going to see things like Final Cut 10.4. I'm sure Adobe's working on or already has some stuff going on. So we'll be seeing a lot of that become a lot easier. And before long, I would say a couple weeks, we're going to start seeing some movement there. So let me just find an image here. This would be a good one. So this is color, right? So we got Rec 709. This is what most of us are publishing at. This is what you're watching right now. This is what all my videos and most of the internet in the world is seeing, that yellow line there. And that's the color range available to us. 2020 is where we're headed, and that's this black line here. And you can see how much more is available there. So I don't think the scrolling really helps at all there. And kind of an in-betweensy is Rec, let me see if I can find one, DCI P3, or you'll hear it mostly as people will describe it as P3. Let me find a good one here. Here's a good one. Yeah, so we got 2020, Rec 709, and DCI P3. That's going to be a standard we're going to be seeing a lot. It's kind of in between Rec 709 and 2020. So that's the one piece of the puzzle, is color, and the other part is brightness. So if I go back to this here. Oh, what's going on with that? I hear music in the distance. There we go. Turn that off. All right, so brightness, that's the second part of this whole HDR thing. Our screens cannot show us anything close to what we can see with our eyes, the variant in brightness. So if you look at a sunset and there's a mountain in the foreground that's dark, with our eyeballs we can see the mountain clearly, we can see all the variation in the brightness of the sun. As an example, my background here, which is horribly messy because I've moved a ton of stuff around today, you see really bright stuff like this light back here. There's kind of a white piece of foam core there, which looks really bright. Our real eyes can see a ton of gradient there. With HDR, we're going to be able to take more advantage of that high end specifically, the brightness and the variance, and being able to see the differences of brightness. So have you ever looked at a picture you took on your phone or your camera, and it all just looks completely blown out in the sky? There might be information there, and when you're shooting log, there's definitely information there, but we can't see it on the screen. HDR is going to change all of that, and when we publish for HDR, we're going to be able to take full advantage of all that information. So, HDR, it's going to be a thing, and it's going to be here before we know it. The other thing that I think is going to be really interesting moving forward, and in 2018, I think at NAB this is going to be huge, and I think NAB 2019 is when it's going to be just everywhere, is RGB lighting. And it sounds kind of dumb, but you might be thinking like, what's up with the RGB thing? It's just colors, right? But there is so much power behind mixing RGB with our traditional LEDs. So if you look at Generation 1 LED lights, those 1x1 panels that were horrible, they looked green or pink, we got that color figured out. People started learning about CRI, then TLCI, and at this point there's tons of cheap, really good lights out there, as you've seen here on the channel. Then bicolor came along. Every light became bicolor, and now we're getting to the point where we're seeing bicolor options that are bright throughout the color range, and we're starting to see some RGB lights designed specifically for video. And I have some RGB lights that we'll be talking about and reviewing here shortly that are really awesome, and they're kind of like a poor man's sky panel. So if you're familiar with Aries sky panel stuff. So with RGB, you can do amazing things like the light that I'll be reviewing. It's 150 watts, and I can throw it at my background or any wall anywhere, And you know how when you point a light at a wall, even if it's white, it always looks a little off? Well, with RGB, you can set your color temperature, and then if it's a little magenta, you can just pump some green in there and correct the color. It's amazing the flexibility that RGB gives you. And of course, you can do things like, let's make it any color you can imagine, and you can totally do that, of course. So I think RGB is going to be huge. Before too long, we're going to see a lot of lights incorporate that, and something to look out for sure. So yeah, oh, we got Anim Productions bought your GH5 guide. Awesome, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm really proud of that. And that going kind of full circle to those who were here earlier, that guide really taught me a lot. Having to really, because I'm not going to sell training unless it's, you know, I know for a fact it's got all the information you need and the top notch of information. But that guide really got me learning stuff. So, and that's what I love about that camera. $2,000. And you have one of the most advanced, definitely the most advanced camera for $2,000. But even beyond that, I think it's incredibly powerful. And just studying all that stuff, you're going to be way ahead of most people. All right, so I'm going to actually look at the chat here now. I saw somewhere someone was talking about the Crane 2, not version 2, but 2. And yes, I was supposed to have that video available already, and I am posting the review for that today. So once I finish up here, I'm literally going to walk right into the studio, shoot one little piece, and throw it up for you guys. So stay tuned for that. Amazing gimbal. If you are looking to get into the gimbal game, that is definitely something you should consider. And if you have an old one, then this video will really help you figure out what you need to think about with the upgrade. Yeah, so how are you guys? We have any questions here? I see Pascal says or asks, would you recommend the specular lights for feature film and traveling, or should I wait for one of your RGB color panel light? The one I'm going to be reviewing is not going to be very travel friendly. It is huge. But the specular lights is pretty good. Let me grab the case real quick for you guys. And for those who don't know, my very latest video, we talk about the light I'm about to show you briefly, and I used it in the trailer for my GH5 guide. Really cool lights. Let me grab the case. Alrighty. And headphones. All right. Make some room on my desk here. Kill this. Okay. So here's the case. That's the entire kit. I don't know if you can see that very well or not. Really nice little case. It's one of those cases you can actually reuse, which is nice. And let me go down here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Awesome. So, specular. The whole idea is you have, and the whole system is made up of these little tubes here. Okay? Really nice, hardcore aluminum. One way I was rigging these was just grabbing a nano clamp and snugging it up on these and throwing it on a stand. And in the kit, you get, oh my gosh, sorry about that. Ooh, that must have hurt your ears. I just smacked my microphone. You get 4 of these little dudes here. They're, looks like about a foot long. 1/3 of a meter for you non-imperial guys. And then one of these sticks has a little power switch and a knob and a power input. So one is kind of the controller switch, and then you link them all together. You have to connect them all together, and then you're good to go. And you can, well, you don't have to connect them all together. You can use 1 or 2, but you don't have separate power supplies to have them completely separate. You have to connect them somehow. So you can connect all 4 together, or 1 through 4, and you use these little things, okay? Little plugs in there, so I can just take one of these lights here and loosen up the knob. And of course, this isn't going to work, and this is why I don't do live reviews all the time. Oh, come on. Here we go. This is why we don't do things. All right. Come on, baby. Work with me. This particular joint I haven't, this particular elbow I haven't set up yet, so it's being extra difficult. There it is. All right, so I plug it in, gonna snug it up, and then there's an elbow here where you can then create any shape you want. You can have all four together to create one panel, or you can connect them all with these elbows. And in the trailer of my GH5 guide, you saw how I had like two kind of like V shape setups. You could do that. You could do squares. You could do way more than that. So really, really versatile. Each of these, don't quote me on this because I don't have the spec sheet right next to you, but I believe they're 22 watts a pop. So each of these sticks is 22 watts. Very, very bright. And it's got this little nice diffusion. They're daylight only. And I think for backgrounds, you could definitely key someone with this. They're really, really amazing. So you have a lot of flexibility with how you use them, and they are kicking when it comes to that output. You could do the whole, use it like a ring light with triangles or all that kind of thing. And then there's a couple other things you can get. If you get more than one of these kits, you can get a expansion kit that has cables where you can run them all over the place. And it also comes with, you know, an attachment where you could line a ton of these up in one giant line. Lots of fun stuff. So yeah, that's Specular. I know a lot of people have been asking about that since my last video. So there you go. Talk about the $40 Movo. Yeah, it's great. I think it's right here. Yeah, it's right here. Boop. This is now my favorite budget microphone. It sounds great. It's way louder than the Rode Video Micro. The only time I wouldn't recommend it, like I talked about, is if your camera is very sensitive. Because if I have this microphone about this distance, which is pretty close to me, that's going to be too loud in my Panasonic cameras. Sony, you're fine. Canon, you're fine. But the Micro would be better if you're going to be really close to it. Otherwise, you know, for vlogging and whatnot and the rest of your typical YouTube setup, this would work great. All right, let's do some questions, shall we? Any links for that? You talked about the light. I can totally hook you up. 1 second. Oopsie dips. And I can't even remember if I mentioned the name. It's Specular. Specular. There it is in the chat. Let's see. Scrolling up a little bit, guys. Great question from Jordan. Do you recommend the SLR Magic Anamorphic? I do. I really like them. Bollocks. I'm trying to get something. My phone is wigging out over here. They have several different options, and you have 1.33 and 2x. The 2x will give you true anamorphic on the GH5. So the whole idea, you record square, the lens grabs all this wide information and squeezes it down onto the square sensor. That's true anamorphic. The 2x is what you want for that. Another option is if you can't record, like the GH5 has that anamorphic square recording option, or 4.3. If you have a standard 16:9 like you're watching right now camera, you can get a 1.33x anamorphic lens. SLR Magic also sells those, and it works. It's more lightweight. It's way easier to work with. The 2x is kind of a beast. So if you want to be a little more run and gunny, that would be a good move. Now those are the adapters. They also sell legit lenses, but you're going to spend a lot more for that. Abraham said something about question about the GH5 when recording exposure changes when I'm shooting. Yeah, hit me with that question. I'd be happy to help you out. Kevin says, hey, what's up, Kevin? I need to figure out how to turn off the auto jump down feature in the chat. because that's getting annoying. Let's see this. And we have... Whoops-a-dips. Let's try that one more time. All kinds of issues today. There it is. We got a donation. Once I find it here. There it is. There it is. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? 30-day reviews. $2. Thank you very much, sir. Or lady. And 30-day reviews says B-roll tips for small products. That's a great question. When it comes to B-roll, I just think of a couple different little sets, if you will, and using smaller objects is a lot easier to do that. I don't have them on my desk right here, but those Aperture H198s, for little lights, you can put them just out of frame off to one side. For small projects or small products, one thing I used to do all the time before I bought a bunch of lights was just take a table, push it up against the window, either let indirect light come through the window. I'm going to turn my microphone down. I'm peeking a little bit there. And yeah, that would be great. Otherwise, if there's direct sunlight, just take some like wax paper or something soft and put it right in front of it. You're going to get a gorgeous light dropping down on your object. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to like get really fine-tuned movement with your camera because it's such a small object. You probably have to be somewhat telephoto. So a lot of the time I will just think of different shots, and I'll start the shot with the end of the shot, and I'll reverse it in post. So if you're thinking about like a whip pan where you do a quick pan and it ends on the product, what I'll do is I'll start filming on the product and then I'll whip away. That way you get the perfect framing on the product, whip away, and then just reverse the shot in post. But that's a great question, and I have a collaboration coming up in a little while that will talk about that more in depth with a really cool subject matter, or an object actually film. All right. Wow, we got a lot of questions here, folks. Have I seen Last Jedi? I have not, Emil, but I am dying to. I just need to find the time, babysitter, and bam. Me and the lady are making that happen. Should you get the G85? It's unlocked for 4K, no time limit. I love the G85. Oh, you should get the G85. It's unlocked. Oh, you guys are probably talking amongst yourselves. I'm sorry. Caleb, you recommended a nice mic / reflector clamp last time. Any recommendations for a budget mic stand? These are awesome. These like $13 dealios if you're talking about a desk. If you're talking about like overhead shotgun miking, I for a long time just use a standard like stage mic stand or a mic boom arm. $20 on Amazon or something like that, and then you can get a little adapter to convert it to a quarter 20, and then from there just a cheap boom. Just like jump on Amazon and search for light boom stand or something like that. That would do the trick. Do you have a Joby Gorilla Pod? Which one should I buy? That's a good question. I don't have one actually. I like to use the little tabletop tripods that don't have the squiggly arms. The only reason I don't like those is with that style of tripod, I find I like to set it down a lot of the time, and a lot of time I set it down in something flat, so it's kind of annoying to like set it down and have to like constantly play with it to get it back to being level. But I know a lot of people swear by those. Kevin Lynn also picked up the GH5. He's been waiting for it forever. Thank you, Kevin. That's awesome. Yeah, that stupid 2.0 firmware, because I was like literally starting and gearing up for the guide after I got the camera, and then, you know, was waiting for that 2.0, and so I waited and waited and waited. They were late with it, and that's why the guide is here at this point in time instead of earlier on. Caleb, it's already the second donation. Did I miss one, guys? Oh my goodness, Rory, I am so sorry. You get You get all the sounds.
Damn, son.
I apologize.
You just hit with the wow effect.
Totally missed that donation. Rory, £2. He says, thanks for your content, Caleb. Awesome creator. Thank you for the donation and for putting up with me completely missing that. I apologize. All right. How many camera bodies do you have? Not a lot of new ones. Right now the nicest camera I have is the GH5, and then I've got a G7, a G85, an old GH4, which is like beat up, man. The HDMI input or output is dying. So I've got that like jerry rigged. That thing has been through the trenches. That was one of the last cameras I used regularly when I did full-time freelance work. So that thing has shot hundreds of interviews and is a beast. So the GH5 or GH4 we just talked about, a Sony a6300, and then I got a bunch of like cheap cameras, which we'll be talking about, and I have talked about some, the ESM, yada yada yada. Variable ND. Let's do this in order here. Kayla, if you're gonna, so should I get the G85 or G80? Hard to get the G85. If you can get the G85, otherwise the G80 obviously is going to be much easier to get a hold of. Do you prefer the bolts-in over aperture lights like the 120D? Also, the 762s are the same brightness as the 55 watt. Yeah, so that's a tough one. They're both different. The aperture has a smaller head, so if you're going to be flying it places, that's a good way to go. For the same output, the bolts-ins are heavier, but that 150 watt from Boltson or Game TV is really, really good. I'm going to be doing lots of bounce with that up here shortly. So that I would go for that for a key light. Really, if you need a lot of light, most money, or if you need the highest output per dollar, that's a good one to go for. But I really do like the apertures. So that's a good one, though. It's a tough one. It's getting hard, guys, to figure out what's best, because there's so much good stuff available to us these days. Jordan asked, variable ND or set of NDs? I would always prefer a set of NDs over variable, because the variable has those polarizing, funky stuff, reflections, skin issues. So go for the set of NDs. Okay. Any recommendation for a complete shoulder rig for the GH5? I haven't done a shoulder rig setup in forever, so I wouldn't know where to start there. I like small rig these days. You might check out, see what they have available, but I don't know. Yeah. What XLR mic do you recommend for under $300 to $400? I think the Aperture DD lands right in there. That's the microphone I've been using in the main shooting space for a long time now, almost a year or over a year, and I really like that. Any recommendations for waterproofing a camera? There's lots of those housings. That's probably your best bet, but I haven't had to do that personally. Would you ever consider producing a training video on how to price for video services or for clients? Maybe. I'm considering getting some people here on the show, and maybe we can talk about some of that stuff. I know it's kind of, you know, everyone has their thing. In our corporate video guide, myself and Corbin Tyson talk about how do you figure that out. We didn't give you guys exact dollar amounts like you should charge $1,000 per hour or anything like that. We gave you kind of the formula to figure that out for yourself, because it's going to change. Everyone's at a different level. But yeah, we might see some content up here on the channel about that. Hey dude, thanks for all you do. The community, great content, great videos. Thank you, D1. How many subscribers do you wish to have? I'm happy with you guys. I am very fortunate and very grateful for this crew right here. And if we keep going, awesome. I never see myself getting, it'll be forever to get to 1 million if that even happens. And then I feel like it's kind of that's the end of the line. But no, I'm very, very happy with where we've brought the channel. And to all you original DSLR video shooters, you're the beasts and the bests. Because a lot of you guys stuck with me from the dark ages. Why are C-stands so expensive? Weight and material and the way they make them. The cheapest you can do is like these Chinese ones on eBay, and even those are like, I think, 70 bucks. But once you work with them and realize, you know, it has to hold a lot of weight, so I'm not terribly concerned about having to spend a little more for something solid. My G85 has log profiles that seems to be locked. So what's going on with did they unlock that? Or has someone unlocked that, rather? And then we got another donation from...
No one has ever done that! No one has ever
done that. Pascal. He says, or Canadian $2, thank you very much. He says, support for you, my friend. Thank you. That's very, very kind of you. Let me know if you have a question. I'd be happy to hook you up there. And that means a lot. I don't know. Donations. You guys are over the top. Is your G7 on autofocus right now? No, it's fixed. I have it on the manual mode, and then I just click and drag onto my face, and then it locks, and then it stays there. That's 99.9% of how I do focus on the Panasonic stuff. Can you donate 1 Bitcoin? That would be cool. I don't have Bitcoins, if you're addressing me. David asked about pricing information for production services. For training, I do. There's a guide at the Academy called the Corporate Video Guide, and we talk about everything there's involved, or that is involved with corporate video, with my good friend Corbin Tyson, who's been in the trenches since forever ago. So that we cover all that stuff in there for sure. How many lenses do you have, Nicholas? I'm not sure. There's a lot of crappy ones, a lot of cheapo ones. I couldn't tell you. 20 or something. Yeah, lenses are a lot of fun. You can get them really, really affordable too. The vintage stuff that I dig. Rory, who I missed the donation on earlier, says, haha, no worries, dude. Your videos have helped me loads as a freelance filmmaker on a budget, especially with lighting. I really upped my game in the last 2 years. Nice, Rory. Yeah, lighting dudes and dudettes. There's plenty of people out there with 4K cameras now, but if you can rock the lighting and really get that down, you're leagues ahead of everybody else. I mean, some really, really high-end people still haven't gotten the lighting thing down. Not that I'm like know everything there is to know about lighting. I am hardcore searching and learning lighting myself, because it's one of those things you'll never fully like check that off the list as things learned, but it makes the biggest difference. I would, hands down, if I was starting from scratch, I would get a cheap 1080p camera and spend probably 70% of my budget on lighting if I was starting over from nothing. A7, worth it in 2017? If you're talking about the original one, unless you get a good deal on it, I would take a pass. Came TV, Boltzmann 30 or 55 watt. If you had to choose one set of two. For how I would use those lights, I wouldn't need the 55 watt. The 30 watt, neither of them is going to be perfect for a key unless you have a more sensitive camera. So I would prefer to save the money, get the 30, and then put the rest of that capital toward a big, big light. All right. Favorite gimbal stabilizer for your GH5? I don't use them that much, and that's why today's video that'll come up after this live stream is done is going to be done by someone else who is a gimbal beast. And but if I had to pick, I mean, the Zhiyun cranes are beasts. I have the original one, and the review coming out after this video is going to be for the brand new one, the Mark II. not the version 2, the 2. Zhiyun Crane 2. And that's probably going to be your best bet for the GH5 because you've got that larger weight limit or higher weight limit. G9, what do you think? It seems like it's more of a photo camera. Dadgummit. Lost my shot. There we go. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it looks like you'd be better off saving a little more for a GH5. What is the smallest key light that you would use for garage tutorials? That is a great idea, Robbie. I've been meaning to do a video like how much light can you actually get away with for a key light, and I was going to do a bunch of tests, and we'll get to that someday. I would say a light that is 40 to 60 watts or 40 to 70 watts. It depends on your camera. If you're shooting with an A7S II, you can get away with 40 watts shooting through a silk. And the reason I say that number is it's going to depend on what it's going through. If you're shooting it through a silk, you're going to need more light. But I feel like 70 watts, you'd be pretty solid. You could probably get away with 62. If you're shooting on a GH4, which doesn't do very well in low light, you'd want a little more juice. 70 to 100 probably. Okay, let's see. Wow, you guys are going crazy today. We got a donation from Dustin Vang. $2. Thank you very much, sir. He says, fam vlogger here. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Thank you, fine sir. I'll have to check your channel out. Family vlogger. It's a pretty crazy time we live in. People can make a living off of vlogs. It's wild stuff. Stupid question. I have a red 8K, but I'm thinking shooting my next feature film on the GH5S because it's so small. Super clean stabilization, and I have the Crane 2. Would you do it or not? Well, if you're tired of that 8K because of the weight, yeah. And if you can afford an 8K, you know, GH4S or GH5S, go for it. That could be an interesting complementary camera to your red setup. Did you check out the 7.5 for Micro Four Thirds Laowa lens yet? I have not, but I should check that out. Thank you. Any recommendations for video editing computers that I don't have to build like Dell? Go for it. I have no problem with stuff like that. If you're on a Windows platform, there's a lot of great stuff out there. Just look for an i7, 16 to 32 gigs or more of RAM. And then depending on what software you're going to be using, a somewhat decent graphics card, 1060, 1070, 1080 Ti, somewhere in that range, and you'd be set. There goes the jumpy chat. Umbrella lighting with LED cheaper alternative. On umbrellas, I'm torn on. I love the idea of umbrella lights because they pop open. I'm just making sure I'm getting your question right here. That's could totally work. The only thing is that it's not as easy to control the light spill with those compared to like a softbox or something. Hi from Ukraine. What's up, web show? And Outside the Cube jumps in here with a $10 donation. Thank you very much, Outside the Cube. Hit me with a question if you got one. $10. That's awesome. You're a beast. Gotta go to sleep, boy, says Tech Junkies. Have a good night, Tech. Did you go to film school? From D. Dean. I have not, and I didn't. It's probably the better grammar. I don't really think it's necessary for what I'm more into now, which is more content creation, less, you know, filmmaking or feature filmmaking. Yeah. Thoughts on lighting for a travel blogger? That's a good question. If I were traveling and I was going to be doing like hardcore in the woods all over the place, I'd probably save my money and save up my money and get a Westcott setup. Really durable lights, get a battery setup. That's probably what I would do. It's going to cost a lot, but it'd be worth it. I'm back, says Bart Johnson. Hey, what's up, buddy? I didn't see you. I'm back. Dogs are walking. are walked and dishes are done. Nice. Welcome. All right, I know I'm missing some stuff here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to catch up with everybody. What's your next feature film? I don't shoot features, so I couldn't tell you. That's an interesting question. Looking to step up my short movies B-roll, should I invest in a decent drone or a decent gimbal? Personally, if it was me, I would go for the gimbal because you can do a lot with that. If you want kind of some aerial stuff, here's an interesting thought. Buy one of those ridiculously tall poles, put your gimbal on the top of it, and then throw it up in the air and use your phone to control the gimbal. Eh? Good idea? What do you think? That might get you by, and just, you can do so much with those. You don't have to worry about regulations. Just awesome. Okay. Do I have experience with documentaries? Any suggestions for essential minimalist gear? We did some corporate documentaries, and I haven't done like a feature documentary. But yeah, you want to, well, it really depends on what kind of style. If you're doing mostly interviews, or if you're going to be like in the trenches somewhere doing something crazy, you got to get something that audio has to be kind of your key. You got to get the audio thing figured out. Next on that list, and kind of in tandem with that, is power. You have to have something really, really reliable. If I were buying today, depending on your budget, I would go for like something like a GH5. You get the dual card slots, so you're safe there. Great audio integration. Power is great. So those are the big ones for me if I'm doing a doc. And a good codec, because you're going to be rolling a lot. Abraham with a donation. Thanks for all your knowledge. Thank you, Abraham. $2. Boom. Nice. Thank you. Westcott Ice Light, or would you get the Specular Light kit? Thank you for taking the time for the questions. Great question, Pascal. The Specular kit, which is still in my lap, is going to be way brighter. It's going to be... I was doing some research, you little sneaky person. I was going to wait for it, but I was going to buy a bunch of those tubular style lights, like ice light knockoffs, and see what people should go for and compare them. I would probably avoid the ice light and spend the money on this. But if really portable setups are important to you, then you'd want to go with the ice light, because this guy doesn't come with a battery solution. You got to plug it in. You can buy a battery adapter, but the cables and everything can get kind of crazy. So if you need something just you want to run around with, then the ice light or a couple ice light alternatives would be a good option. Do you know DSLR Guide on YouTube? Yes, I am subscribed to him. I've never met Simon, but yeah, good stuff. Really solid. Outside the Cube, the pleasure is all mine. I've learned a lot from your channel, including the G85 guide. He used it to film Sri Lanka vlog. Nice. Awesome. We got a question here. It says, I'm about to pull the trigger on the GH5 and heard a lot about the bad highlight roll-offs. Any idea what's the deal with that? So I talk about it in the guide, but the first thing you want to pay attention to with log is that we're no longer dealing with 0 IRE and 100 IRE for your range. The max is 80 IRE and then 7.5 or 7.3 for your blacks. So you just got to know that. And so you're gonna, as you get close to white, it's gonna feel like it's spiking real quick, but it's just the range is different. And then a lot of times you're gonna have to pick which one you're going to sacrifice, your highlights or your shadows. So it's different. It's definitely a little different. But I haven't noticed it's too bad. And having a LUT, a really strong LUT, like the Panasonic one that goes to Rec 709 or something like that would be helpful so that you can try to see those highlights. Another thing you could do is find or create your own LUT where it just pulls everything down a stupid amount. You would never use it, but on set you could pull it up real quick to see if your highlights are still safe or if they're destroyed, because it's kind of hard to see, you know, if this is your highlight range. As you get closer to 80, it looks like it's kind of doing this, so it's hard to tell what's all in that white range. And if you know what I'm talking about with the waveforms, which we talk, waveform is everything with log. We talk a lot about that in the guide. Yeah, learn waveforms and find a way to pull that stuff down where you can see what's up with those highlights. Pixel 5 says he did monopod with the crane. Got some cool shots. Awesome. Please reduce your weight. Ooh. I apologize for offending. Unless you're talking about someone else's setup. Just bought the corporate video guide. Will review. Thanks. From David. Sweet. New Year's resolution. Please reduce weight. I love you. Pixel 5. Okay. Considering getting back into content creation in YouTube, got a 7D Mark I and Mark II. Do you think it would be better to sell them and get something else to shoot with? For content creation, I can't get over the Panasonic stuff. That's really the main reason, guys, that I use Panasonic. If I was, I don't know, shooting different types of content, I might have a heavier mix. But because I can connect to my phone with the camera, throw the camera in a corner, change my focus, change all my settings, preview it on my phone, that is such a killer feature, and it's so good on those cameras. So yeah, I would probably sell the 7Ds, especially the Mark II, while it still potentially has some value there. But that's just my 2 cents. Is there something like Magic Lantern for Panasonic? I don't think so. How important do you think bicolor lights are? Should I go with the bolts and bicolor or just daylight? Personally, it's going to depend. If you're going to use the light on a background, bicolor is really nice. You don't need a ton of light back there. You can tweak the color. But if you're using a key light, I usually go for all daylight because you can just slap your subject or send it through a giant silk and get a lot of light. So it depends on what you're doing. If you're going to be lighting some stuff on a tabletop where you don't need a ton of output, you could skimp a little bit and do bicolor. And when I think of bicolor these days, I don't think like I'm only shooting 3200 or daylight. Usually you want to be somewhere in the middle and you can fine tune it. Like you can go to daylight and it's going to sometimes look kind of blue. So you just warm it up a little bit. And that's where I really like bicolor lights. All right, folks. Oh, man. I'm not going to be able to catch up. We'll do a couple more questions here. And we will wrap this puppy up. Let's see. What were the craziest circumstances that you had to film in? Whether you be suspended from a bridge, tall building, crazy weather, anything. I have to think about this. One project was with Betty White and horses. That was interesting. We did a construction gig where I almost fell 40 feet. That sucked. I should feel like there's more that I should be recalling. Nothing too crazy. I didn't do any like big gigs where we were doing all this wild stuff because, you know, corporate video doesn't get that exciting. Or at least the stuff I did. Yeah, I can't recall. That's a really good question, though. I should think about that and come back to you if I come up with something else. All right. And I think we're going to wrap it up with James Parrish II. $5. Thank you, James. He asks and says, looking at getting an A6500 for primarily video, what under $200 monitor would you recommend mostly outside shoots? Not a lot of motion. any of those $200 monitors I talked about. There's a new monitor coming out shortly that I'll be getting my hands on shortly that is going to be epic for your situation and everyone's situation. So stay tuned for that, guys. That's going to be a good one. Unfortunately, I think we're going to wrap this one up. I am in a second or a few minutes or so going to get a new video up for you guys. The Zhiyun Crane 2 review is going to be showing up here shortly. I want to thank you all for joining me. This was a really good one. We're going to have to come up with some content because I'm struggling to keep up with these questions, guys. So we'll be doing something exciting here on these shows before long. Thank you guys for joining me. Hope you guys have a fantastic evening and rest of the week. Lots of videos coming up. I'm going to try to do multiple videos this remainder of this week, so stay tuned for that stuff. And we'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.